First is the controversy over the Liberty episode of 1967, in which Israeli warplanes attacked a U.S. Navy intelligence ship and killed U.S. sailors at the height of the Six-Day War. For reasons that remain unclear, adding to the era of mystery around this episode, President Lyndon Johnson called off a counterstrike by nearby U.S. Navy units upon learning the identity of the attacking forces. Israel later explained the incident as a result of errors in reconnaissance and communications and apologized for the incident. And Johnson accepted the apology and refrained from publicly investigating the episode. On the basis of testimony of surviving crew members, writers such as James Ennis, who was a survivor of the crew, Donald Neff and Andrew Cockburn and Leslie Cockburn speculate that Israel deliberately attacked the ship in order to prevent the U.S. from detecting the Israeli mobilization against Syrian forces in the Golan Heights and reporting such intelligence to the regime in Damascus. James Bamford offers an alternative view that Israel acted to prevent the detection of mass killings of Egyptian prisoners of war in the nearby Sinai. On the other hand, scholars such as David Schoenbaum and Michael Oren accept Israel's honest error argument by stressing the likelihood of accidents committed in the fog of war and by dismissing the alleged reasons behind a deliberate Israeli assault on its very best friend in the world as unconvincing. The controversy over the Liberty episode has reached into public discourse and become the subject of legend and conspiracy theory. U.S. Navy veterans groups have kept up a drumbeat of protests that U.S. officials have not adequately investigated or explained the combat deaths of their fellow sailors. Several websites, many of them with more than a tinge of anti-Semitism, to this day accentuate the Liberty as evidence of all types of foul play. On the other side, rumors abound of covert efforts to steal James Ennis's book from libraries to keep it from the public. Consider the record of 2 conferences on the Six-Day War, one held in 1992 and featuring many former American and Israeli diplomats who had been on duty in 1967, and another conference held in 2004 at the State Department and marking the release of the Foreign Relations volume on the 1967 war. Both conferences included sharp and uncompromising debate that indicated that the controversy on the Liberty is far from solved. Controversy number 2 is not quite as old, as it centers on the publication of an essay by distinguished political scientists John Mearsheimer of the University of Chicago and Stephen Walt of Harvard University. Self-professed realists who had unsuccessfully resisted the Bush administration's decision to invade Iraq in 2003, Mearsheimer and Walt published an essay in the London Review of Books in 2006, about a year ago, charging that a large, wealthy, and influential pro-Israel lobby had developed a juggernaut on the formulation of American foreign policy by capturing control of Congress and by penetrating the top echelon of the executive branch of the United States government. The 2 scholars concluded that the United States had earned a well-deserved reputation for single-minded devotion to protecting the interests of Israel, the consequences of which included a greater danger of terrorist attack and the disastrous war in Iraq. The Mearsheimer-Walt essay provoked a tumultuous public debate in the United States. Numerous op-ed writers, elected representatives, and executive branch officials denounced the piece as factually inaccurate at best and anti-Semitic at worst. Under intense political pressure, the Kennedy School at Harvard pulled the article from the university's website, where it had appeared in tandem with the print version. Some academics, notably Professor Alan Dershowitz of Harvard, denounced the article in strong terms, and rumors abounded that wealthy donors, including the benefactor who had endowed the chair occupied by Walt himself, threatened to curtail their philanthropy in protest. Reports indicated that other academics quietly indicated their support for Mearsheimer and Walt by sending private email messages or by signing a petition posted online by Professor Lon Cole of the University of Michigan. Finally, allow me a word in late 2006 of Jimmy Carter's book entitled Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. Analyzing the Arab-Israeli peace process from the late 1970s to the present, The book casts criticism and blame on all parties to the conflict, the United States included, and on the U.S. in particular for botched peacemaking diplomacy. Yet the book also concludes that Israel's continued occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and Golan, and its policies of building settlements and the security wall have comprised the single greatest obstacle to a comprehensive peace agreement. The former president's 23rd book quickly proved to be his most sensational. His heavy dose of criticism of Israel, his deliberate choice of the word apartheid in the title to capture the essence of Israeli policy, provoked a widespread and bitter reaction. Again, pundits and politicians weighed in on heavy terms. Professor Kenneth Stein of Emory University resigned as a fellow of the Carter Center in protest, even though apparently, according to countercharges, he had been quite dormant in that capacity for more than a decade. Professor Alan Dershowitz again rose in Israel's defense. Even the National Republican Party reportedly dropped hints before the 2006 midterm elections that the former president's anti-Israel views pervaded the entire Democratic Party. What might one make of these two recent controversies? On the surface, we might recognize that the authors advance some contentions that are somewhat plausible, but by no means proven conclusively by the evidence. And that certain key features of their arguments are neither persuasive nor logical. Critics might therefore rightfully question the accuracy of every aspect of their cases. On a deeper level, the controversy also points to the difficulty of working an issue that remains the subject of intense personal passion and debate. Critics of Walt and Mearsheimer, charges that Walt and Mearsheimer are anti-Semitic also lack convincing evidence. And indeed, somewhat ironically, such charges seemingly fulfill one of the observations of the essay, that the Israel lobby routinely plays the anti-Semitic card to squelch debate and silence opponents. No one has dropped the anti-Semitic charge at Jimmy Carter, but the criticism of the former president has nonetheless been sharp. The passion against him is no doubt inflamed by Carter's use of the word apartheid and by his firm defense of that decision in post-publication interviews to characterize the essence of Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. One might only wonder how Carter, whose public life coincided with the era of UN resolutions equating Zionism with racism, could possibly not have anticipated that the word apartheid would hit a raw nerve. While walking on the field of scholarship on the Arab-Israeli situation, or U.S. relations with Israel or one of its neighbors, in summary, one must tread as carefully as if one is walking across the region's many minefields. Thank you.